Hey guys, it's Sasha. Unemployment data for the United States came out this morning and it smashed all expectations. This apparently is a bad thing. The US added 253,000 non-farm jobs in April, and the hourly wage growth went up 0.5% month on month and was up 4.4% year on year. You can see the Treasury notes immediately jumped after the data came out because, of course, good employment and good wages are a 100% sign that a recession is on the way and the Fed will continue increasing rates. It's the worst thing that can possibly happen. In case you're confused by that sentence, it's because it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. But we live in a time when good employment and robust wage growth are a really bad thing. And according to economic experts on CNBC, it's approximately the worst thing that can ever happen to an economy, because before today's announcement, every expert was forecasting that unemployment rate would go up. But instead, it went down to 3.4%, which is the lowest level since 1969. And you can see that on this chart here, the unemployment right now is what is technically known in the industry as fucking low. And idiots like me look at this sort of thing and think that it's a good thing because high employment is a sign that the underlying economy is doing well. There are record numbers of jobs out there for people to take. You see the headlines in the newspapers that Google fired 5,000 nerds and Facebook fired 10,000 Wii characters, but the fat trimming by tech giants is not representative of the US economy overall. It's not representative of blue-collar jobs. In fact, the media headlines are bullshit anyway, because in January, Google announced that they are laying off 12,000 employees, and the media went berserk writing all these headlines. Oh my god, so many people losing their jobs. And in the most recent 10Q filing with the SEC, Google said that they have 190,711 employees. That includes the 12,000 that are on their way out. So after the 12,000 fired employees leave, Google will be left with 178,000 plus change. And here is the 10Q form from exactly 12 months ago. And in that one, Google said that they had 163,906 employees. And the year before that, Google had 139,995 employees. So yeah, if you read the news, it kind of sounds like tech giants are in dire straits. They're firing almost everyone who works there. But the data says that Google actually increased their workforce by 9% in the last 12 months, even after you account for those job losses. So employment data in the US is doing great. And of course, employment is one of the two metrics that the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee is responsible for. The guys on that committee don't seem to know what their job is though, because every time good employment data comes out, those clowns start giving speeches saying that good employment is bad news and they better go do some rate hiking to start killing off jobs. How dare those people have jobs? Quite how the US economy continues doing so well despite Jerome Powell's best efforts to fuck things up, I do not know. But it is pointing to the incredible resilience of the US economy despite the fastest increase in interest rates in history. Of course, the Fed will say that good job data means that the economy could be doing too well. It could be running too hot. So well that people will be earning so much money, too much money, and therefore they will have all this money that they'll go out and spend, and therefore inflation is going to run rife. The problem, of course, is not people going to their jobs and earning money. That's actually kind of good. The problem is that the Fed invented a COVID vaccine that looked suspiciously like $100 bills and then proceeded to give those dollar bills to everyone who wanted any. But the argument is there nonetheless that the problem is inflation. And the Fed will do anything to beat inflation, which is much too high at 5%. It's above the 2% target. And I know the Fed is not very good at looking at data and doing maths and all that, so I thought I'd lend Jerome Powell a helping hand and explain what's actually happening with inflation. News came in this morning that used car prices fell 3% in April against expectations. Not quite sure which expectations, that's what I've been talking about for a few months now. The overall level is still incredibly high from a historic perspective. But we are now also seeing a price war in new cars, which is likely to extend this run. Tesla started slashing prices at the beginning of the year. Now Ford has joined with the price cuts on the Mach-E. GM and others haven't quite started dropping their prices yet, but the prices are not increasing at least, and drops are going to come eventually after car prices in the US exploded way too fast artificially last year on the back of stimmy checks. House prices that were exploding ever since COVID first arrived took a big step down in Q1 already this year, according to the St. Louis Fed, with the median price falling from $479,500 to $436,800. That's a 9% drop quarter on quarter, which is a bigger drop than at any point in 2008 2008 when we had the monster housing crash. And it's bigger than the big drop we had in the 1990 crash. It's bigger than the drop at the peak of the last inflation crisis 40 years ago. In fact, I checked and it's the biggest quarterly drop since this data started being recorded in 1963, which is odd because I haven't seen a single report from any mass media about this, which is kind of strange. It couldn't possibly be because this goes against the BS accepted narrative that they are meant to feed. On the back of house prices declining, rent prices continue dropping after 2 years of ridiculous increases. Inflation data will come out next week, and we probably are not going to see any of these housing numbers come through because shelter, the part of inflation that covers housing, is a massively lagging indicator. But we know that these drops are here, we can see them in the data, and we know that they will be exerting a big downward pull on this part of the consumer price index sometime later this year going into next year. Energy is another big part of the index. Just a few weeks ago, the Russia and OPEC cartel decided to cut production to try and make more money from their oil because this sort of market manipulation is the only way that they know how to make money. Oil price went up after the announcement and then it came right back down, sticking a big fat two-finger salute at the price gouging tactics. After the oil price spiked last year, Joe Biden ordered the US strategic oil reserves to start pumping oil out to help bring the prices down and keep the economy running. A lot of people were criticizing it, but this was a good move because the oil reserves were at max capacity. And if Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the resulting oil blockade are not the time to use your emergency supply, when is the right time? By December last year, the strategic reserves dropped by 43% from their peak, but in the first 4 months of this year, no more oil reserves have been used and the price remains stable regardless, and much lower than last year. US natural gas production hit a new record in 2022. At the same time, exports to Europe increased 150% after they cut off Russian supply lines. And the result is that the gas prices now collapsed to a level that is 4 times lower than it was at this time last year. Now, the lower oil and gas prices do not mean that consumers are immediately benefiting. Gas at the pumps is still much too expensive and electricity bills are still way too high. Because of course, energy companies will be really dumb not to take ridiculous advantage of a crisis. In case you haven't heard, pretty much every single energy company out there has been posting record profits. I know, how impossible to predict that one. In the olden days, the people running these companies would be dragged through the streets and then hanged for taking advantage of people and running a cartel. But in modern times, it's called capitalism and it's apparently okay. But as the commodity prices have collapsed, eventually the retail prices will have to follow. Market forces will defeat even the greediest energy companies given enough time. So we know that the energy part of the consumer price index will continue falling in the coming months as well as a result. And most other parts of the index indirectly also include energy costs. Food has a big energy component in manufacture and distribution, for example. So here's the thing. The US economy is doing surprisingly alright. Employment is improving, wages are holding up, unemployment is low, energy prices are coming down after a crazy 2022, and this is going to be a very welcome relief for households and help push inflation down as well. The cost of rent and house prices are finally beginning to move in the right direction. The United States is leading the world in some of the most transformative new industries like AI and electric cars, with the biggest leaders all being US based. So as the world transitions and adopts to include these new industries, the US economy will benefit disproportionately as a result. On the back of this, growth stocks in the US that ballooned during COVID and then got destroyed last year remain really cheap after worries about inflation, worries about interest rates, worries about a looming recession kept those prices down. A company you probably have never heard of called Chegg recently reported their results. Chegg is an online education company that said in their Q1 results that they think their business was badly affected by ChatGPT. And of course, immediately after that happened, we saw another wave of panic about artificial intelligence, how it's going to come and take all of our jobs, the economy is going to implode. A lot of stocks began getting destroyed. Freelancing platforms like Fiverr and Upwork saw their share price absolutely annihilated because, of course, every single historical example that we know where technology enabled us to do more work in less time, to become more efficient, was absolutely disastrous for the economy. The arrival of electricity sent the world back to the Dark Ages. Factories meant that economic output shrank suddenly, and collective farming meant that you didn't need armies of people to plow the fields, which of course came at a huge detriment to the global economy. And now AI is going to be equally disastrous, completely ruin our lives, and destroy the economy. Not a shadow of of a doubt about it. So while everyone seems to be panicking and completely losing their shit, I am sitting here looking at the long term and feeling weirdly excited. It's probably because I am a complete idiot, because after all, I am just a random guy on YouTube. I know all the usual dweebs and chicken dumbasses have suddenly come out once again from their mom's basements because, the economy is about to collapse and the worst ever crash is 100% definitely, absolutely guaranteed coming. But I'm not here to try and guess what happens next week or next month because I'm not an idiot. Because as an actual long-term investor, I am far more interested in where the world is going to be in 10 or 20 years. If you found this video useful, please don't forget to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.